dear friends, colleagues, distinguished guests, and all those who are following us online, welcome to the Planting for the Future conference. My name is Ladislav Miko, and today I am working as head of representation of European Commission in Slovakia, in Bratislava, but I am closely linked with activities related to trees over the Europe. Welcome and start with this, in my view, unique and remarkable event. For 11 years, about this time of year, early spring, the Environmental Partnership Association, together with European Landowners Organization, and under the auspices always of members of the European Parliament, is announcing the winners of the competition called European Tree of Year. As one of the godfathers of this idea, I am following the successful growth of the contest across Europe carefully every year. And I'm really pleased to hear that number of people which voted for the European contest this year in 2021. And despite of pandemic measures, despite all the problems, even doubled compared to the last year and crossed 300,000 people. What this means? This means that European citizens care and are interested in trees, in spite of all problems which we face in society, in whole Europe, whole world. This year, we upscaled the topic of European remarkable trees and their importance for local communities, extending our focus to future. Planting for Future initiative is an initiative which has been launched in the Czech Republic, which is a cradle of the Tree of the Year contest last year in 2019. And the aim was very simple, to plant one tree for each citizen within 5 years, and with the ambition to mobilize a national planting movement. By the way, today we have more than 1.1 million already on place, and this is obviously beginning, but very good beginning, and we are on good track in Czech Republic. Not surprisingly, it is not only Czech Republic. At the same time, more very similar initiatives are arising around Europe on different levels, be it cities, regions, nations, but also EU level. And a couple of them we have pleasure to have among us today. So we will hear about the successful stories, but also problems which are linked to these initiatives. And I am very sure that the working groups allow us also to gain all the expertise and also address the problems which are before us. What may give the planting initiative the real boost is actually the ambitious plan of the present European Union Commission. You all know that the plan is to plant 3 billion new trees by 2030. If this is well designed and offers proper instruments for involving Europeans in planting and also caring for trees as a symbol of our greener and more sustainable future. I'm actually very pleased seeing this excellent audience with many competent stakeholders of various backgrounds across the EU, some of in very high political, regional, local functions in their particular member states, but also representatives of broad public. Thank you for your participation and willingness to share your experience during the debate, which will be organized in working groups and which will allow to articulate your recommendations for the success of the very ambitious 3 billion trees Green Deal goal for Europe. Now, before I give the floor to the person I believe most eligible to introduce the EU Commission tree planting plan, which is Mr. Commissioner, let me remind you who is behind this event. Both Plant for the Future conference and also European Tree of the Year award is organized by Nadace Partnerství on behalf of its umbrella organization, Environmental Partnership Association. and in close cooperation with, as already mentioned, European Landowners Organization. Let me also to thank our sponsor, Škoda Auto, which kindly supported the event together with Nestlé. And I would like also mention to you our partners in the conference, which is LifeTerra and Life3 Czech projects, both co-financed from EU LIFE program, and WWF, the Worldwide Fund for the Nature. You will see some of them moderating the working groups. Now, I hope we have a good connection and I can give the floor to the European Commissioner for the Environment, Oceans and Fisheries, Mr. Virginijus Sinkevicius. Mr. Commissioner, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for this invitation. I have been asked to say a few words about the Commission pledge to plant at least 3 billion additional trees in the EU by 2030. We made this commitment in the EU Biodiversity Strategy for 2030. This initiative is part of our broader policy framework designed to protect and restore Europe's biodiversity by 2030. Indeed, planting of trees needs to go hand in hand with protecting existing forests and safeguarding the services they provide. You are certainly well aware of why we need to plant trees. They are the great multitaskers of nature, regulating the climate, capturing carbon emissions, protecting soils, recycling water, producing oxygen, and the home of a variety of species. The list goes on and on. They cool our cities and filter the air, and they are vital in the countryside, giving the farmers income and recreation for us all. And as your campaign shows, everyone loves a tree. Tree planting is an excellent way to engage citizens and to help them take part in a tangible action to improve our planet's health. So it's no surprise that the Commission's pledge has attracted so much attention. People sometimes ask why we choose that number. We didn't just make it up. 3 billion additional trees over the next decade is twice the number that would otherwise grow from human efforts or natural regeneration. So it's a symbolic doubling of business as usual and perfectly possible in terms of available space. We are working on the roadmap as I speak, and it will be published with a new EU forest strategy in the course of this year. We need a roadmap to ensure the quality and sustainability of the project. Firstly, we need to be careful about what to plant and where. Then we need to work on the financing and make sure that the right people are involved. And of course, we need a proper tool to monitor the results. Let me explain in more detail. Choosing what to plant takes careful consideration. When you choose the right tree, it can be good for the climate, good for Europe's biodiversity, and it will bring economic benefits to the people who own the land. There is a need to preserve the genetic diversity of Europe's trees, but the trees we plant must also be able to survive higher temperatures and the impacts of climate change. Non-native species should generally be avoided unless the native varieties can no longer cope with the projected changes in the climate and a non-invasive geographically close variety can. Choosing where to plant is equally important. There is no sense in planting trees in high-value habitats like peatlands or valuable grassland. But it does make perfect sense to restore trees as landscape features in farmland and to use them as green infrastructure along and between agricultural fields. Another very good choice is urban and peri-urban areas, agroforestry, land that is abandoned or degraded, and space along transport or energy infrastructure. Planting, of course, is only the start. What we really need is a longer-term vision, a vision that nurtures these trees, helping them grow to maturity. That involves planning, consulting professionals, and consulting the local communities that are best placed to identify suitable land. It takes funding, it takes monitoring, and especially it takes care to ensure the survival and the long-term growth of planted trees. The key enabler, of course, will be funding. This has many elements, from opening the channels of communication to ensure that everyone is aware, to supporting project development and to delivering the funding where it matters most. Many EU funds will be concern from rural development under the Common Agricultural Policy to the Regional Development Fund and projects under LIFE, the EU funding instrument for the environment. The European Climate Pact will provide a platform for visibility and information. It will link up with the EU-supported agricultural plans in the member states and a range of funds and platforms, including the urban greening platform announced in the EU strategy. Consider investments in forest ecosystem restoration in their national recovery and resilience plans. In the decades to come, we need to restore biodiversity in Europe, and we need to draw down huge quantities of CO2 from the atmosphere. Achieving climate neutrality isn't just a nice to have, it's vital for the security and resilience of future generations. These 3 billion trees send that message. In an ideal situation, a tree grows for a very long time. It needs protection throughout its life. That's true for young saplings as it's for established woodlands. Let's ensure they receive the protection they need so that they too can protect our future. Thank you.
Yes, I think it was not excessively long, but pretty clear message from Mr. Commissioner, setting up actually to the large part also agenda for today's discussions. We heard from the Commissioner the rationale behind 3 billion trees target. Be ambitious and plant in the EU twice as much as we usually plant, which means 6 trees per every EU citizen by 2030. With that, we shoot really high, given the pattern of the European land use. The Commission is able to reach it only if it succeeds to involve the entire civil society across Europe, cities, NGOs, but farmers, landowners, also companies, governments, tree nurseries, schools, universities, and arboristic associations, but also media and opinion leaders. Most of you actually represent such stakeholders, and we are here to listen, record and transmit your experience and recommendations to the people who are drafting the road for the planting 3 billion trees, as well as share the lessons among all participants. Now, what is coming is actually the core of our conference, which is a work in the working groups. There are 4 of them. Each of them is focused on different aspects of our topics. Let me shortly to introduce the groups, and then you will be invited to join the groups. The first group will debate land access and planting methods. It's not easy to find a place where we plant the trees, and this group will be led by Priya Devarsiratam from LifeTerra and Patrick Worms from URAF. The second group is going to deal with trees for resilient cities and landscapes. This will be steered by our fellow colleagues Peter Derksen and Frank Noyens from the famous Dutch tree planting NGO Boomfeestdag. I don't know if I pronounce it properly, but I try. The third group, will be debating role of private sector, because this is also the sector which needs to be involved, and also role of civil society in the tree planting. And this will be moderated by Michal Vesely from South Moravian Innovation Center and by Peter Medveď, who is a director of Ecopolis Foundation in Slovakia, the Slovak member of our consortium. And finally, almost everything needs also money, financing. So fourth group will have an easy task to bring ideas about how to finance the whole, all these efforts heading to plant 3 billion trees. Debate in this circle will be facilitated by experienced fundraiser, right? Andreas Beckmann, director of WWF CCA, and by Sabine Lieb from LifeTerra. Now, a few more comments. Be aware that the work in working groups is not primarily aiming to just collect the presentation of successes, but rather, drawing experience and lessons learned and recommendations. So we invited you to share your unique experience, good or bad, and formulate these recommendations in order to reach the tree planting target by involving the broad constituency of stakeholders across the whole European Union. All in a very condensed debate, limited by single 1 hour. It is a difficult task, but that also promises that it could be, if well arranged, very productive and effective. All 4 rooms will be closed sharp at 2:25. So 2:25, you will have to click on the button and come back to plenary. We will meet together and we will wrap up your conclusions, which I hope I will be able then to summarize into overall recommendations of our conference. Moderators, take care that everybody gets the floor and nobody dominates the discussion. So sometimes they will have to make some unpopular comments. Time limit for one contribution is set up for 3 minutes max. And again, please try to focus on recommendations and lessons learned from your practical experience, not only on presenting your success or non-success experience. Note takers, which are defined for every group, highlight the important points from your contribution in bullets to the Word document shared on the screen. Please make sure that your points are properly summarized. So what we get then in plenary is broadly, accepted by the group. It will be anyway still the opportunity to comment in the plenary after the presentation of individual results of the working groups for everyone. So you could obviously also then comment or contribute to the work of other groups if you will have an idea which needs to be raised. Recommendations from all 4 working groups will be presented to the plenary by moderator or note taker. This is your decision. And obviously, then it will be time for commenting and finalizing the message. So now it's end of my first entry to this conference. I wish you to have productive brainstorming in your groups. And see you all back in the plenary at 2:25 sharp.
I would like to introduce here another parameter that in our opinion should also be taken into consideration, and that's the well-being of the citizens, the well-being of the people actually living in these cities, and the mental health as well. We observed, at least in the Spanish case, in cities during this lockdown or confinement due to the COVID pandemic, as you know, a lot of psychological problems arose from this lockdown, especially in big cities where people had no access to nature or to green areas. And I think these well-being parameters should also be included in when planning cities, because trees are not only to cool down the temperatures, but also for people to feel in peace and to feel at rest and to feel comfortable and to feel as a community in cities. So I definitely think this type of qualitative parameters or more social measurements should be also included, and not only the hard science of kilograms of CO2 reduced and all this, which are of course also important. But I think also here, this is important. Just mention this and then follow the discussion. Thank you.
I think you're right. Thank you very much. Then I would give the floor to Maria Pastor. Maria?
Thank you so much. I just want to share very briefly what we are doing in Milan with the program Forestami, which aims to plant 3 million trees by 2030 within Greater Milan. So this is a project that we already started 3 years ago, and one of the main challenges the program is there, and we started because of the air pollutants, more specifically, which affect Milan and its greater area, particularly during the winter season. So the idea is to help let's say the Great Milan area also by planting trees. Of course, there are a number of other policies that are in act. So trees are one of the components, and urban forestry has been considered one of the main issues that are also helping our climate. Because of that, we've been working together with 133 municipalities in order to seek this change, and that is one of the challenges. So when we are talking about urban forestry, we're not just talking about huge cities, but we are also talking about smaller cities which sometimes do not have the technical or the financial capacity to embrace this change. So this is one of the challenges, to provide information, to provide technical support, not just to big cities, but also to smaller municipality. Another issue is to provide space for the tree. And that is a huge issue, because when we've been working with a top-down approach by looking at the urban island, the runoff effect. We have been looking at the tree canopy cover at the metropolitan area. We have been looking at the impermeabilization of the soil. But on the other side, when we are looking at the availability of the areas, these maybe do not match, because you are already looking at spaces. At the beginning, the spaces that are available usually are permeable soils already. So this is an issue. You need to intervene in areas which are challenging and the availability of land usually do not match. And in order to do so, you really need to work with specific policies. And this is in small municipalities is also another issue. And to make a change, you need to have great availability of land, which is also an issue in cities, which are dense environments, but also money worth environments. So this is another. So to create the change, to create space for tree, you really need to have a long perspective and to work with the municipalities for that. And this is, I think, that is one of the greatest challenge. So where to plant the trees in city and how to make room. So we've been working with the schools, we've been working with the hospitals, we've been working with the main infrastructures in order to provide green systems. But to make the change and to make the room for 3 million trees, for example, that's our challenge. It's a very challenging plan. So you really need to change the mind of the citizens, change the mind of the politicals in order to create this space. And this, I really want to highlight the fact that provide the space for the tree, I think, is one of the greatest challenges that we will face also in the European Union by considering the number of trees, that 3 billion trees. So I think that that's one of the greatest issues.
But how did you succeed in getting the people enthusiastic for planting the trees? Because that's always difficult in municipalities.
The municipalities are very, very happy to work with us. It's a voluntary program, so they call us and we start a one-to-one discussion with each of the municipalities. So it's a long-term job also, because there are 133. So what we do is to sit down now virtually because of the pandemic to discuss with them what is their plan, to what is the urban plan. So in terms of urban transformation, what they're looking, if they have available land. So then we provide them the information that usually do not have, such as the urban island, the tree canopy cover. So we as a scientist, so because we're working as a University Politecnico di Milano, we are providing them information that usually they do not have. And also we are available for them if they want to have events to help them to spread information with the citizens in order to make them to disseminate the fact that trees are important, that urban forestry is a main issue. And it's a very long-term path.
Okay.
So
thank you very much. I want to give the floor to Andrej from Slovakia. Andrej. Your microphone is muted.
Yeah,
so,
thank you.
Okay,
Thank you
the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you. I'm from city of Bratislava. I wanted to add a comment to Martin Ander's comment, especially for the position of the trees, to create stronger positions for them in our structures. And I mean, in order to be actually able as a city to adapt for climate change, I think really do need complete reset of priorities and law that is connected actually. And to be concrete, for example, our ownership rights are prioritized much more than some adaptation measures these days. And this is crucially important to actually set the rule that maybe not the highways are built in high public interest. And due to this declaration, they don't need several kind of allowances. So they have a goal, really to go easy way, very without any unnecessary restrictions, which we are seeing in the ways in which we are planting trees. This is really crucial for us because we don't need actually just plant trees, but we need to create whole corridors for greenery and water in the city structure and around. And for this, we really need to kind of prioritize this as to have this at the same level as a highway, for example, in our case. So it is very crucial to somehow reset these priorities, because maybe I would add another example. Engineering networks are really big problem in our case, because in some special occasions they are prioritized. They have their corridors which are almost impermeable for some trees to plant in these. So somehow it would be nice to have a rule, to have a common rule in Europe that would say that not engineering networks are a priority anymore in the city, at least to have at the same level to possibilities for planting of the trees. These are very important bullet points. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. Peter, your microphone.
Yes, no, I think I like very much this discussion. I would like to add two things. This underground infrastructure is being renewed every 50 years, or is constantly, is not static. So let's say the position of that underground infrastructure can be sort of reorganized to create place for trees. And I very much agree with that it's about priorities. We have also on a city level discussions with cities about this, especially also with traffic designers. They always have their book of rules, how wide a road should be, while also this is not set in stone at all. So in a way, it's also about suboptimal traffic solutions. A road that they say needs to be 6 meters can be 5 meters. That's 1 meter full width left for green and trees. And these are very simple decisions and create all of a sudden a lot of space to plant new trees. As long as the people that can decide make the right decisions.
Okay, thank you very much. I see a hand from Aroa. Is that the older hand? So will you please close it? Thank you. Okay, and Andrea also. Thank you very much. Is there anybody else who wants to have the floor to say something and to share their experience about planting trees in the urban areas? Because we've only got 4 minutes before the mayor of Prague will joining us. I don't know. Pardon?
Sophie is raising her hand.
Hey, I don't see it. Oh, sorry, Sophie. I didn't see it. Excuse me. Yeah. Sophie, where is Sophie?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you.
Hello,
Sorry.
everybody. Yes, so I'm Sophie Barr. I'm from the NGO Arbre in France, who's in charge of remarkable trees inventory and valorization. But I'm here to speak on behalf of
really trying hard to avoid burning first class or actual wood, but really burning biomass and recycled wood if possible. So that is the targets that we have. Actually, in absolute numbers, IKEA industry, we are on a target to go down 80% on greenhouse gas emissions by 2025, comparing to 2015 levels, and really even having PV panels installed wherever possible by 2025. So, which is a strange target because you would think that it is possible to install them everywhere, but it's not possible to connect to the grid everywhere. So it's a bit a tricky one. When it comes to connection to this tree planting initiative or target of European Union, we are a huge consumer of trees, and I'm sorry I didn't have time to give you the statistics of what is the area of trees that IKEA consumes every year, but it's quite large. What we are trying, of course, is to make sure that we are responsible when it comes to where we source the wood. We have just celebrated actually reaching one of the most difficult targets we've ever set, and that was by end of 2020 to source all the wood from what we call more sustainable sources, or FSC certified forests, as IKEA industry and also IKEA supply chain. We work a lot with the local communities supplying the wood to us, because for them it's difficult to afford certification of the forest. So looking for how responsible can we be when it comes to using the trees. Now, planting the trees is another thing. We cooperate quite a lot with local communities. We plant the right amount and right type. I'm trying to make sure that I go within the 3 minutes. What is important also for us is that we use, when it comes to the usage of the trees, that we use as much recycled wood as possible. And that's another aspect of the tree area for IKEA. So I'm not sure if I touched on everything. I'm trying not to steal all the time. Of course, there is a lot I could talk about, but planting the trees is something that we'd like to do more of with the local communities and with our co-workers. I'd like, somebody said, one tree for citizen in Czech Republic. I think we could elaborate on that and set ourselves a target of 1 tree per co-worker. That would be really nice. So that is inspiring to me. But other than that, it's really about, for us, it's a global picture on wood and forestry as well.
Thank you very much, Anne-Marie. We see definitely IKEA as one of the leaders we can learn from, and the wood and trees are obviously important for your core business. What about Skanska, the construction company? How trees fit into your zero carbon policies? Karel, if you can share shortly.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, perfect. So thank you in advance for the invitation, and I wish you everyone good health in these difficult times. My name is Karol Frank, and I am responsible in Skanska, Czech Republic, and Slovakia Republic for green business, environmental protection, and energy management. And Skanska, as you know, it's a construction company, and in this industry, with one of this industry is greatest environmental impacts, and we produce almost 30% of waste. We are responsible for greenhouse gas emissions in the full range of up to 30, and of course we have a significant impact on biodiversity, and reducing the carbon footprint of our industry is also a big issue for us. And we have developed and approved carbon roadmap for Central Europe. I'm very satisfied. It was 2020. And we want to achieve a 50% decrease in carbon footprint to the 2030, and we will be carbon neutral to the 2045. So our carbon roadmap is divided to strategic and operational areas, and now we're preparing action plans. And of course, intensively discuss programs that will be include tree planting and also compensation programs, because for us, compensation, it's not about only some offsets, but for us in construction, compensation also means greater use of wood in construction structures, like cladding, partition, and others. And it could be suitable carbon compensation in our conditions. And we are therefore preparing the first carbon neutral project in the Czech Republic, which will use wood to a much greater extent than before, and of course with certified wood. So we collaborate closely with Partnership Foundation, Nadace Partnerství, and we participate on some programs like Trees for Future or Freedom program, Trees Freedom. Yeah, and for us, is this topic very important, and I have some common proposals, because we need to move some next steps in responsible public procurement involving environmental aspects, and it could be related to tree planting, and of course we development and transfer of experience in construction with the use of wooden components to the Czech Republic, and for us it's very important start.
Yeah, as a forester, I'm particularly worried when we start investing money in planting trees, and we don't have from the outset some sort of reliable mechanism that allows us to think that indeed the long-term investment is somewhere guaranteed and protected. So I would probably divide the tree planting in two big areas. The first one is the one in urban areas. There I see sort of, I don't know why, but exactly, but I see more guarantees coming that in mostly the public investment, but also the private investment would be in a way or another protected, because it then becomes part of, if you want, a system where civil society works as a watchdog for those trees. And you can see this happening again and again every time an alley of trees is touched in any of our urban settlements. And also because I think that this is the area where with fewer trees, we can do a bigger change in terms of perception and possibly even of impact connected to climate change and all these kind of elements. And the other area is when you go to the countryside, and there indeed, I just looked at our projects this year. In 3 projects, climate change adaptation, we have more than 2 million trees which will be planted. They will last 3, 4, 5 years. And then, these trees, to ripple any benefit, we have to wait 30 years. So what do we do? How do we handle this kind of thing? And then that's probably where if you want some sort of public-private partnership, where indeed we put the money, whether this is public or private, we don't care, even in private hands. But then there is a sort of a public machinery that indeed has a strategy where you ensure that even in the worst conditions, somebody takes care of those trees that were planted, and this is the classical thing that the public would replenish. And then that would be nice. But the last element is the recovery plan. We're looking for money. In the 1920s and 30s, the US showed with their huge investment in forestry, and not only that they managed to recover millions of jobs and to relaunch part of their economy. And still today, you can go to one of the national parks and use the infrastructure that these guys built 30, 70 or 80 years ago. So I think that it's the same story with us now. Call it planting trees, call it forestry, or call it investments for nature and biodiversity. It's a very good way to spend probably part of that money in a sizable way and for a long-term time of investment. And you can also spend it pretty fast because we have a machinery in place that allows us to digest big money in the forestry sector. And I would plead also for excluding alien species completely from the equation if possible.
Great, thanks. I mean, with the recovery, you're talking about the, whatever, 500 to 700 billion euros that's being made available for the recovery from the COVID pandemic, and be targeted especially for generating jobs.
Yeah, in a country like Italy, we're talking about more than 200 billion euros, and they're looking for projects and ideas that can spend that money fast, because we're putting on their shoulders a pressure that, and I think that's the looking backwards almost 100 years to what the US did, and spending in nature is a very good investment for society as a whole, and I would do it.
Right. The plans, unfortunately, were on the behind it's short on time in the sense that the plans are all going in latest in April.
Yep.
It should be approved, and then the money will start coming out the door. So if they're not in there now, then it'll be quite difficult to get it.
Exactly.
So,
yep.
Great. Thank you very much for those questions and also those observations. I'd like to go to another direction, another perspective. It's private sector. And Ariella Hollander, I think you're from Triodos Bank. Is that correct? I wonder if you have some insights from the private sector, and especially the bank perspective.
Yeah, hopefully. Well, thanks a lot, Andreas. Indeed, I work for Triodos. Triodos has 3 business units: the bank, investment management, and since recently, Triodos Regenerative Money Center. This is a new business unit which I'm the managing director of. And within the business unit, we think differently about money. We basically say, have we not generated enough financial return at the cost of nature and at the cost of social relations? So we are sent out with the objective to see whether we could also finance projects really with an impact first perspective. And we feel that restoring nature is a very important aspect of that. I would say that we look at nature more broadly, so not only forests, but nature as such. And we're putting quite a bit of effort into finding out how could we make nature investable, and ultimately also how could we scale that up. And we're looking at some very concrete projects. And what we find out is that the planting of trees and the actual work can probably be financed by private money, but we could probably use some of the public funding as a means to really fund the technical assistance. We think that if you want to finance restoration or conservation of nature, we can probably create business models around that, although I find that word very difficult. But we all know the carbon credits. We know that there is benefit from biodiversity, from water retention, water quality. So there are many functions that nature that are now being that are now being destroyed, that nobody pays for, but have a real value if you restore them. Probably also for companies, but also for governments and semi-governments. So we think we can probably create business models around these projects, but they are incredibly time consuming because it will be different from in England, from Holland to Germany to the Czech Republic. So these projects, in order to create them and to make them financeable, it's just very cumbersome, and it takes a lot of time and effort to do this. But we are putting quite a bit of work into that. So if you would find of a way to finance some funds for us to help us in terms of the actual project management, that would be fantastic. And we would be willing to try out to actually finance the work of the restoration or the conservation. What else? Yeah, and then the second question to me, and that's a very difficult one, because nature is different everywhere and all of the ecosystem services are different everywhere. My question also becomes, how can we make this scalable? And of course, it's easier to scale this if you do it in a monoculture way, and if you do it in areas where trees grow very rapidly. But I also agree that if we want to create nature in order to store carbon, let's do it in a very diverse, local, and hopefully climate adaptable way.
Super. Thank you very much. Very useful. I mean, I think what you say resonates with our own experience. The organization I lead is a network of deaf organizations from Ukraine down to Bulgaria. And some of the work that we've done, for example, in Slovakia, also with the Landscape Finance Lab that Paul leads, has been trying to both conserve and then also restore forests in Slovakia. And we can make a good business case, I think. Once you have it up and running, you can make a good business case why it should be able to run by itself or run on private funds, but it's the setting up which is the real difficulty, and we only get to a certain point, and then there's the 100,000, 200,000 up to €1 million that's missing as a critical gap there as well. Let's go to another perspective, looking at Šimon Michalčík. As far as I know, you are the founder of Plant for the Future in the Czech Republic. Is that correct? So you're on the ground.
Yeah, it's called Plant for the Planet.
Sorry.
Yes. Happy to meet you all. I'm Simon, and I'm also an ambassador for Plant for the Planet, and that's an international youth-led initiative. And together with UN, we're trying to mobilize for planting 1 trillion trees around the world to mitigate the climate crisis. And I'm representing here today both our Plant for the Planet global network, and I'm also representing Plant for the Planet entity in the Czech Republic, which I'm the founder of. So aiming at 1 trillion trees, I think is probably a goal just as ambitious as the goal of this initiative to plant 3 billion trees in Europe. So we understand very well, actually, that it's difficult to find ways to fund tree planting activities easily and also sustainably into the future. And to reach our goal of 1 trillion trees worldwide, we've launched the Plant for the Planet app, which is an online platform where any tree planting project can present itself completely for free and receive donations quickly from anyone. And with the app, we're trying to make tree planting transparent and cool. And thanks to many fun features that we have on the app, hundreds of millions of trees have already been planted across 140 different tree planting organizations that have registered for the app. So we think that planting 3 billion trees across Europe will be much easier if it's integrated in our platform. because that way all the participating tree planting projects in Europe can be put on that platform. They will be able to transparently show their tree planting activities using, for example, satellite imagery, and any donor ranging from individuals to governments to companies can then easily and quickly donate to all those planting projects, with 100% of the donations going directly to the projects. So those projects will then do not have to worry about setting up complicated donation methods and all the related administration. Now, actually, the app can take care of all that. And our app is especially effective, I think, when it comes to involving corporations and big organizations in tree planting, because companies who want to take part in planting 3 billion trees in Europe, they can get a white label app, which is like a branded version of the app that is given to the company, and the company can then integrate it into their website, and they can plant trees easily and motivate their employees and customers to plant trees as well. And most importantly, I think, and that's the recommendation sort of from us, from Plant for Planet, is that the white label app can also be used by the European Union directly. So we can brand the technology we have to the EU, for the EU, and the EU can integrate it into their website, and with their own white label app, they can then track the progress towards the 3 billion trees. We can track that progress with a tree counter. We can monitor all the participating tree planting projects across Europe, and we can use it also as a cool way to communicate the campaign.
Left for green and trees. And these are very simple decisions and create all of a sudden a lot of space to plant new trees, as long as the people that can decide make the right decisions.
Okay, thank you very much. I see a hand from Aroa. Is that the older hand? So will you please close it? Thank you. Okay, and Andrea also. Thank you very much. Is there anybody else who wants to have the floor to say something and to share their experience about planting trees in the urban areas? Because we've only got 4 minutes before the mayor of Prague will joining us. I don't know.
Pardon? Sophie is raising her hand.
Hey, I don't see it. Oh, sorry, Sophie. I didn't see it. Excuse me. Yeah. Sophie, where is Sophie?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you.
Hello,
Sorry.
everybody. Yes, so I'm Sophie Barr. I'm from the NGO Arbre in France, who's in charge of remarkable trees inventory and valorization. But I'm here to speak on behalf of Frédéric Ségur, who can't be here, and is from metropole of Lyon, a big city in east of France. So I want to, give him the opportunity to share his experience about this. So in Lyon, they set up a canopy plan to adapt climate change at the Great Lyon level. And they have a strong policy. They have had a strong policy for the last 30 years. They've written charters about ecological charter, tree charter, and now the canopy plan is a kind of operational chapter, joining these two chapters about climate change and tree chapter. So it's like it was first the idea of building up partnership and involving actors to think together about tree values, tree services for the city to fight climate change and heat islands, of course. So because trees and plants are a big lever to change this, they stressed on the tree issues, and they also grounded their observations on city maps of the agglomeration of Lyon, and they saw that actually it's not only about trees, but also about what I think it's Maria was saying, that it's about not only about comfort of citizens, but also of social equity. Social access of citizens to green spaces. There's a correlation of trees with health problems. So all this could be seen as very accurate features on the map. So this politics about taking trees into account was brought together with a real social and economical approach to the tree project. So it's called Canopy Planned. And so the aim is to plant more and more trees and to involve the public. So you have professionals who were involved first, but then publics also, and local stakeholders and NGOs, and to involve population and raise awareness. They set up a kind of a one-day hackathon called Tree Remix, where people are, thinking about new ideas in groups, like workshops, to think about crazy ideas or very sounded, intelligent ideas, and they make real actions and commitments. So each kind of professional groups or a set of people have ideas, and they can get involved into operational aspects of it. So it's not only political, up to bottom, but it's also a kind of grassroots reflection, and it's more, I would say, a real concept that's changing people's mindset and think about living with trees.
Okay. Thank you. It's finished, Sophie? C'est fini?
Yeah, I mean, I had a text for 3 minutes, but I could not fit it into the discussion, so it's not. But there's a strong educational ambition also, and this is the example of Lyon. But in France, you have all these kind of things. You have this involving people. So it's a plan who's involving people. It has political aspects and programs, but also educational aspects.
Yeah, I have to interrupt you because Linda wants to ask something in Jean-Paul, but it's 14 hours, so I want to welcome the mayor of Prague, and I don't know if he's waiting yet. And then I will give the floor afterwards to Linda and to Jean-Paul. Okay? Yeah. Is the mayor of Prague, is he attending the conference or not?
Yes, I'm here. Hello.
Okay. Very well. It's for me not to speak your name, to pronounce your name. Excuse me. So I say the mayor of Prague, and I would love to give the floor to you. But we don't see you at this moment. Is it possible to connect a video?
I believe my camera is on right now. You cannot see me.
Maybe the other people see the mayor.
Yes, I'm seeing Mr. Ship.
Yeah, we can see you.
I don't see him. Mm-hmm.
Okay, at least.
Okay, but try. Please welcome, and the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Well, I will do mostly the talking. I'm not going to make any visual impressions anyway. So, well, distinguished guests, dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, well, already before my 2018 elections, I had set myself for an aim to reduce the extreme temperatures that torment Prague's citizens in the summer. And I consider it extremely important to plant more trees, support green rooftops, and place a greater number of water features in public spaces. Because of even higher temperatures, it becomes less and less bearable to live and work in Prague during summer. The worst situation is in the center of the city because of the large presence of concrete which heats up the streets. 1 million trees planted over 8 years represents an ambitious goal. In my opinion, still it can be met. The 1 million tree commitment is also included in our coalition manifesto. So we had approved the action plan of tree planting in Prague, which also integrates landscaping activities and subsequent care of woody plants, which is very, very important. And I would like to point this out. If you plant more trees and you do not care about them, they will eventually die, because cities are a very complicated environment, not just for people, but also for the trees. So this action plan includes also a detailed schedule of how, when, and what to plant. In 2019 and 2020, we succeeded in planting over 275,000 of trees all across Prague. So we are still on the track for planting 1 million of trees in 8 years. The planting is important, namely for the inhabitants. And this is why we have come up with the project Tree Up Prague. The objective of this project is to make the general public participate in the planting process, to show how trees are planted, how to take care of them afterwards, how much is the cost, and what is their function. I noticed that there was a discussion about the education of people in this field, so this is an activity going exactly in that direction. Tree Up Prague, this initiative, has its own webpage where members of public can learn information about the project, why we are doing such a thing in the first place, who are the stakeholders. And the web also informs about current dates and locations, where and how people can participate in the planting. And as soon as we are able to renew the planting activities, because right now there is a lockdown in Prague and in the whole Czech Republic, so as soon as it will be possible again, we will start again posting all the new information about new planned projects on the Tree Up Prague webpage. Of course, we promote the webpage and the initiative on the social media in order to help to spread the awareness among the people. And in addition, the public can follow planting activities on Pragozor, which is a municipal data portal, and they can see the progress of the action plan implementation, where planting takes place, what's the Prague performance in this regard, compared with other European capitals, and find other environment-related news, such as the number of locations where air quality is monitored in Prague, or the long-term view of water consumption per inhabitant in the city. There was a huge interest in the Tree Up Prague initiative. We did a lot of public planting actions, and as soon as the epidemic situation will allow it, we will continue in this activity. And thank you for your attention. We are preparing also new things like trees planting academy for the children. So thank you for your attention, and remember, make trees, not stumps. Thank you.
You're muted.
Thank you very much, Mayor of Prague. I have one question, because I noticed you planted a lot of trees in the city. But do you also do something with education relating to the planting of trees and to the value of trees?
Well, this is about the project of the academy, the tree planting academy. We will focus on that as soon as the lockdown will be ended due to the pandemic situation. Right now, the education or propagation or the raising awareness of this thing is really being done through the web page Tree Up Prague, which is in Czech, Zastromuj Prahu. I can post that in chat as soon as I will find it here, and through the social media, of course, like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and so on. I will post the link in a moment.
Thank you very much. Before your speech, Linda and Jean-Paul wanted to say something. I want to give the floor to Linda at first. Linda, unmute your microphone, please. Yeah.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Me professionally, I'm a landscape architect as well, and I'm here on behalf of the Metropolitan Institute of Bratislava.
Okay.
And I would like to comment on our issues. And I have to say that at this moment we have full support of the mayor and the whole municipality to push forward all blue-green infrastructure solutions and planting more trees. However, is not in practical and in reality is not that easy due to the same problems as and to the as the guys previously mentioned, we don't have enough space in the streets and so on. Even though I would like to have a bigger conceptual approach of planning new trees and choosing the spots, we as an institute we decided to take on the road, and we reached out to the different city districts that we have. We have 17 local smaller offices, and we together with them we came up with several spots where we will do some regeneration, and we look at these places as a complex regenerations that motivates the local municipalities to take part. And then we have let's say 6 professional teams that are mixed up by architects and landscape architects that then come up with the specific solutions based on the criteria that we settled, that we want to have resilient public spaces full of greenery that are functional and that will basically work for us in the battle of the climate change. However, we, as my colleague Mr. Minarzik mentioned, we don't have the support in the legislation. So the blue-green infrastructure is not seen as a critical infrastructure, as the technical one, as a sewage and as a water pipeways and electrical supply. Therefore, the successful results that we have in projects are at the moment only based on the individual negotiations with administrators, and we would need some common approach and common standards that would help us and basically simplify the whole process, because we have high demand at the moment to create better public spaces, but we are rather slow in the process because we have to negotiate each one with each stakeholder, and it takes a long time if you want to plant, let's say, 3 billion trees in the next 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes. It's
results that you can share with us about the success of these non-native trees in the Netherlands?
Yeah, well, in the Netherlands, it's not so super exotic, of course, because we already have them for 150 years. But it's very important for foresters as it has a very nice wood and it grows fast, and it does not have the same problems as a spruce, for example, has with bark beetle. So that's something which I'd like to mention. And we are already testing different provenances of Douglas fir from the gradient in the United States to see what is the most successful provenance of Douglas fir.
Great. We're looking forward to seeing how that develops for you.
Yes. Thank you.
Harriet.
Thanks. Yeah, no, I was just wondering because it says, the question says, should we always respect local varieties for plantations? So it's already kind of assumed in the question that we are kind of saying plantations are okay. So I think, yeah, already we have to say that from a biodiversity angle, and also even from a climate angle, plantations are not the way to get the most carbon sequestration or biodiversity value. They're like, for those benefits, natural regeneration is the best way to go, and definitely using native species. We've got a lot of very good evidence and bad experience, unfortunately, with planting invasive species or varieties which introduce pathogens into ecosystems. So, you know, I think given that we're all experiencing what happens when we kind of allow these pathogens to take hold with COVID, we should be thinking very carefully, much more carefully than in the past, about spreading pathogens across countries and regions and introducing them. So an example is, for example, ash dieback in the UK was introduced with saplings brought in from the Netherlands. So it's very important, I think. I think this is another basically case for the natural regeneration, because if where you have a seed bank, which is the case in many habitats, where you don't, of course, then that's another issue, and there might be a case for planting. But in most cases where you already have a seed bank, then the local variety is going to be the best.
Thanks so much, Harriet. Michal?
Yeah, thank you. I think that the goal of this initiative is also to not only to plant trees, but also to improve the situation with the landscape, and especially so with the biodiversity. And I really cannot see how we can improve biodiversity by planting foreign tree species. This doesn't work like that. And again, in this regard, I really don't like the idea to really like focus on the productive trees in order to persuade the farmers. And I really don't like the idea that the trees that we plant today should be one day being cut down for the timber. I would really prefer to see trees being planted that are really like able to survive for centuries, like they used to. The old oak trees that were so typical for the ancient European landscape. I would really love to see them coming back. So this is really my main point. Focus also on the biodiversity and improve the biodiversity by the native species and by the native structure of the established stands, or whatever we call the plantations or whatever. They have to be there has to be enough space for the nature within these plantations. So that's my idea. Thank you.
I think that's an absolutely crucial point. We know from a lot of science that ancient forests where you have various age classes, including trees that are several centuries old, are much more resilient, much better at capturing carbon, and much better at biodiversity. The problem is to figure out how to reward the owners of these forests for the maintenance of these forests. And here, may I make a personal call to you, Michel, as an MEP, to do whatever you can with your colleagues to finally get a proper carbon tax integrated into European policy making. Yes, the ETS is great, but it's a detail compared to what we actually need. And once we actually have a proper way of pricing carbon, then we will have a proper way of rewarding the owners of these ancient forests to maintain them just as they are. Because right now the problem is for a farmer that there is no way you can make money from that kind of forest except through a bit of tourism. And that's just not good enough. And that's a societal failing. It's not a failing on the part of the farmer.
Thanks, Patrick. Okay, we're going to move on to the next question. We have 10 minutes left to go. How can we monitor all newly planted or regenerated trees at scale?
Hire the World Agroforestry Center. We've been doing it for 40 years.
Why don't you tell us, Patrick, what you guys are doing there, and how and if we can apply that on a large scale across Europe?
We have an advantage in Africa over Europe, is that we've been monitoring sentinel landscapes for the last 40 years. That means we've been taking soil samples from over 60 different areas across sub-Saharan Africa, regular as a metronome, for 40 years, and we've kept these samples. We haven't thrown them away after analyzing them, which means that as spectroscopic and spectral tools become better and better and better, we can get ever more granular and finer baselines. If you combine that with remote sensing imagery and you feed all that into a machine learning system, you actually get some pretty nifty tools to measure what's going on using remote sensing imagery. And as far as we know, this is more advanced in the African context than it is in the European context, mostly because in Europe, individual countries have developed their individual protocols, started monitoring at different scales at different times, and very often did not keep libraries of their soil samples after having analyzed them. That does not mean that you can simply translate what was learned into a different continent with completely different characteristics onto this particular continent, but it does show that if you have the discipline to collect the right baselining data, and certain European member states will already allow you to do that, then you can monitor with a pretty high degree of accuracy what's happening to a landscape using remote sensing imagery.
Thank you, Patrick. Bas, would you like to say something, or is your hand raised from before?
No, sorry, I will unraise my hand.
Okay.
If I can come in particularly on this topic, and I think that as we focus a lot of the attention on planting on agricultural land and the potential of planting trees there, what we do have in Europe, but developed to a very large extent, is the land parcel identification system of the Common Agricultural Policy, which is basically mapping all agricultural land in Europe. And what we've seen up to now is that the aspects of the trees or natural vegetation on farmland has not been mapped appropriately. But we do have kind of the necessary base to build that mapping on. And I think we should really work with those tools a lot more than we currently do, and because that allow also for input of information by land managers and farmers from the ground, and I'm sure that if you put a sufficient incentive, as some of our organizations have been pushing for an incentive to have more trees and more natural vegetation on farmland, as part of the CAP, I mean. Farmers and land managers will do an excellent job in mapping and marking and showing where all that vegetation is because it's largely there, or they are willing to introduce it. But if we have a policy context where having those elements can cause you problems, so to speak, like losing land eligibility for direct payments, as it was mentioned earlier, then you have an issue. But given the right policy orientation and a clear I'm not even saying, I mean, the aspect of incentive, not having counter incentives to have more trees on farmland, and you would already get a lot more information. And I really suggest that basing that gathering of information on the LPIS is something that can deliver a lot more than we currently think it can. Thanks.
Thanks, Javier. We definitely need to expand, improve, and provide these tools, make it easier for the farmers to use. Moving on to our last questions, we have 4 minutes. We're going to talk about cities, so maybe we can have Laura speak again. We still haven't heard from Danielle or Margaret, so again, I encourage you to participate. The next question is how to solve conflicts with the technical infrastructure in urban areas where we need trees the most for climate adaptation reasons. Angel, you can speak.
I can again bring some experience from Bulgaria. Our cities are some of the most, I could say, tree planted in terms of streetscape. We have plenty of problems with infrastructure, especially with the older types of infrastructure links. Nowadays, the plastic infrastructure is much more resilient towards the roots of street trees. And it's kind of promising when changing this infrastructure with new materials to be an alternative and to be more convenient in planting trees. At the same time, we have experiences of growing capacity of, especially in bigger cities, of transport networks, which is usually at the expense of urban street greenery. we can say that also there are a lot of niches, interesting niches in different urban areas, especially under decay, which have become very much reforested on their own, especially brownfields, and especially in Eastern Europe. So they still stay unused. And at the same time, it's very interesting that it's very important to choose the right species when you grow on streets, because certainly some of the species are very much, aggressive towards urban infrastructure. And that's well known, but still it's not well considered. And different agencies are planting whatever they have, so that makes problem, and kind of some engineers are a little bit opposing urban street greenery. And we should also have in mind the climbers in street areas, which can have also very important tree foliage and canopy, although it's more flat over surfaces. So yeah, that's what I can say. Thank you.
Thank you, Angel. Maybe Harriet, I see you're taking away if you want to, or Laura, if either of you would like to speak about the urban problem.
I'm happy to say something. I think it's quite similar to what Harriet is typing, or I think we're quite aligned. As mentioned, yes, there's a lot of potential for climate adaptation in urban areas, and also for increasing climate resilience to changing climates. But for that, it is also very important to focus on local varieties as kind of more natural landscape features will also be more resilient, as opposed to monoculture, invasive species, and so on. And while, of course, acknowledging that, especially in urban areas, that are the conditions are also, or can be very harsh, so drought problems can be somewhat of an issue. But I am happy to share the time with Harriet too. I think we have some more points to add to that. I didn't want to jump in and cut you off, Harriet.
No, it's fine. Yeah, I was just saying that we do see a role for planting, a big role for planting in.
Okay, I hope you can hear me.
Yes.
Perfect, thank you, and welcome back from, I'm sure, interesting discussions within the work groups. And I will just add a kind of comment or apology. If you see time to time beeps from my microphone, it's as you are rejoining the meeting, the plenary, and there is no way how to stop it. So it's not my clock or phone, but it's actually our meeting which is producing that sounds. but it seems now it's better than in the beginning. Let's come now to important part before we start the plenary comments and discussion, and this is the summary or wrap-up of individual working groups. And I will invite now, I assume, Patrick Worms to tell us what was discussed and what came out from discussions in the first work group. Patrick, the floor is yours.
Thank you. We had an extraordinarily rich discussion, and summarizing it in the, I think, 3 minutes that I allocated to me is going to be very, very hard. I think what can be said is that we all agreed that there is an enormous potential for trees to be added to agricultural landscapes in Europe, and I stressed that this was an assessment that was not only coming from an agroforester like myself or from NGOs like BirdLife Europe, but also by landowners who had experience of doing this and had seen the benefits that this can bring to many people. We pointed out in our group that simply by adding trees to the most degraded agricultural landscapes in Europe, without planting any forests, we could already exceed the 3 billion tree target that is promised in the biodiversity strategy. And if we choose to expand agroforestry, regeneration of trees or planting of trees to areas that are degraded but slightly less degraded, that number rises quite substantially. We had an animated conversation about the risks and benefits of using native species versus exotic species, of putting trees in forests rather than in farmland, and of how to choose species that will beautify our cities without destroying the urban infrastructure in which they grow. We also had some conversations about the incentives and the difficulties that farmers have who want to do agroforestry. These incentives reach from a lack of a business model for agroforestry to spread. It's a lot easier to sell a bag of fertilizer or pesticide or a machine than it is to sell agroforestry advice, for example. But it also reaches to difficulties with policymakers at every level. For example, at European level, it's not obvious that farmers will not lose their direct payment if they're putting trees in arable land. And at local level, farmers are at the mercy of local officials who may misunderstand or ignore the decisions that are taken at a national or at a European level and that seek to encourage farmers to plant trees. All in all, I think I speak for all of us when I say that the conversation was a very positive one and left us raring to go and add some trees to farming landscapes. Thank you.
Many thanks, Patrick, and I would add to what you said. We are aware that most probably 3, 4, 5 minutes for wrap-up is certainly not sufficient, but all the discussions have been recorded, and we will use obviously all the materials in preparing the final report, which will be sent to European Commission. So I am pretty sure that no idea, no comment will be forgotten and will be used. So let's now proceed to the results of the second work group, and I would invite Peter Derksen. Please, the floor is yours.
I give the word to Frank because he wrote everything down and he did a very, very, very good job.
Okay, so Frank.
And I can fulfill it if needed.
Yes, thanks for the floor, Peter. And yeah, we had a rich discussion about where to plant trees, and then there's an ongoing challenge with creating the awareness of planting trees. We all know, of course, that is important. But for the people, for the public, there's important to raise more awareness. And there are several projects in Europe, educational projects and also academies to raise the awareness about planting trees. But also on the realization of planting trees, there are several challenges. For example, the space in the cities. There's a challenge between traffic designers, for example, because they want to have the roads there, but the green infrastructure is mostly in the last place, and there is no legislation around it to give it more priority. So that's a big challenge underneath it. But also positive sounds, for example, in Prague, There were planted about 300,000 trees with respect to the last 2 years, and also for the heating islands there in other cities. It's important to get more trees over there. And yeah, there was just a brief summary, but the main thing is that it's important to bring the green infrastructure on a high level, high political level, also make it more important, and creating more awareness about the importance of planting trees for the public. And yeah, in practice, give also legislation around it to achieve these goals.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you, Peter. Would you like to add anything, or
No, we were also talking about the education with the mayor of Prague, and also talked about the involving of children, the future generation. And I noticed some of the participants that it's when you got the people, they're enthusiastic, and it's rather easy to involve the citizens to the projects in the city. So that's, I think it's a very, very good thing to realize and to promote. Yeah.
Okay, many thanks. I remind all of you that to each work group, without relevance if you have been in or not, you could still comment after we make the summaries. Now I would invite, I assume, Michal Vesely or his colleague to report on third working group, please. Peter. Okay, so Peter, the floor is yours. Peter Medved.
Yeah, thank you. If you allow me, I will help myself with the notes that we took from our group. The framework for our group was discussed with mainly the corporate partners, how they see the zero carbon future and what is the place for tree planting in those strategies. We have several very interesting guests in the panel, and what we could hear that it is very much obvious that companies are more and more thinking about their zero carbon strategies, and those are now typically translated into concrete roadmaps or action plans where they are searching for various tools, including tree planting, into their operation and thinking. So we've been hearing about several tools about how to secure it, like examples for each product. One tree could be planted, or some companies are interested in whole chain from production to retail to selling mechanism, how to secure limiting their environmental impact, and that is obvious that the sustainability become more and more important value or principle for the business. Then from the CSO perspective, we've been repeatedly hearing that we need to have partners in the corporate sector. We need to feel that there is a motivation, participation, and also contribution for the activities, which are very nice tool to public involvement and public encouragement. And the last thing I would like to highlight, we've been hearing about new models or new standards like carbon farming or regenerative agriculture, which become new terms for introducing more sensitive approaches to the management of the landscape. I'm not sure if Michal want to add something to that.
No, I think it was all. Thank you very much.
Many thanks. And finally, the fourth work group and finances. Andreas?
Okay, we're going to start up, and Sabine, you can add anything I miss. So we had a broad range of sources of funding, potential sources of funding that were represented, and also have specific examples. For example, the national level, the Czech Ministry of Environment supporting tree planting in the Czech Republic. but also from the EU side, including the Common Agricultural Policy, cohesion funds. There's the LIFE program as well. What was also mentioned specifically, very relevant right now, is the Green Recovery Funds coming out of COVID, the pandemic, and where the national governments should be, if they haven't done so already, be submitting their national plans now to the Commission. So that might be something, a train that has already left the station. But where it's important to note that the tree planting has good potential for creating jobs, and so would be very interesting in this respect. We had also from the private sector, Triodos Bank, for example, but then also from the civil society, environmental partnership. So there's a range of different funding sources and some good examples there. I think we did slip into a broader discussion about also how do you increase funding available, not just for tree planting, but biodiversity, ecosystem services, and how do you incentivize, for example, private sector support for doing the right thing? Some answers to that are more broadly in the EU biodiversity strategy, for example, related to taxonomy, green public procurement, and things like that. I think the key thing that came through is really the importance of leveraging. So not just looking at one source of support, but rather leveraging, bringing together different integrated sources of support. There we have some good examples of facilitating that. So Plant for the Planet, for example, they have an app that makes it possible to marry or to find funding sources, be it private sector or individuals, for example, with specific planting projects, but also leveraging, for example, using public support for leveraging private sector support. There, specifically from Triodos, the plea for support from the public sector to go towards, for example, technical assistance, which is much more difficult to then actually support, or the startup funds, seed funds to get things started. I think that's a good example actually from the Czech Republic that was mentioned, where the Czech ministry gave the kind of the startup funds, which were then pulled in many other funds for tree planting. More broadly, also the importance of awareness, also with regard to funding, that it's about awareness of why this is an important issue, why it should be supported by individuals, by governments, but also by the private sector. And not just why it's important that it's to plant trees, but also where to plant them, how to plant them, that in not all cases is appropriate. And then also, very importantly, the follow-up care as well, which is often forgotten. So we have some examples from across all those different areas. I think I'll stop there and just look over to Sabina for anything to add.
Yeah, no, you really covered the gist of what we talked about, really. So one central thing was also, as you said, the awareness part, both on the individual side, but also in the corporate sector, basically, to kind of communicate also the bigger picture to people and take them on board and get them basically more encouraged in the whole movement. Yeah.
Okay, many thanks for that. Now I will open everyone to react if you wish, and it may be either to add or to contribute to what was already said, particularly if you were working in different work group and you want to add something to the issues discussed in other groups, but also when I look on the audience, we are more than 50 experienced people with all kind of views and experiences, and we only had 1 hour. And despite of, I am sure, very well structured discussion, it may have been a situation that you simply didn't manage yet to come with some additional theme or important aspect. So now is the time, now is the space for all of these contributions, and I'm very keenly looking about any indication of interest, and I will try to give you the floor. Obviously, please try to be concise and clear. And I see first hand raised, and this is Harriet Bradley from BirdLife. Harriet, please.
Thanks very much. Yeah, I just wanted to make 2 points. One would be maybe a point and a question, which is to what extent are the Commission considering including natural regeneration of trees and forests and shrubs into this 3 billion target? Because in many cases, from the biodiversity and the climate perspective, natural regeneration is the option that gives the best results ecologically, is also the cheapest and the easiest one. So yeah, it'd be interesting to know whether that's something that actually the Commission could include in this 3 billion target, because those are really the kind of forests, let's say, that we want to restore. And then the second point was just, you know, a kind of call to the Commission, and I think it was mentioned in the Commissioner's intervention, was that, you know, being really careful about avoiding the mistakes of the past, including where, you know, we've seen really important biodiversity habitats destroyed in Europe, like high nature value grasslands and peatlands, for example, for these kind of plantation forests. So we really need to avoid that and ensure that there's always a logic of kind of ecological restoration behind any tree planting or natural regeneration that happens. So yeah, just would be interested to know going forward a bit more about that.
Okay, many thanks. And I see already raised hand on the side of DGN, so I will give you the floor after 3 or 4 contributions before, and I will try to follow the order, but it's not that easy with that system. The next who raised the hand is difficult for me to read, but what is written on your slide is MC Pastore. So
yes, it's me. Hi.
Yeah.
So I want to jump on the previous consideration by also looking at the agriculture as a very important field of interaction. So some of the comments were already mentioned about the fact that we really need to integrate agroforestry and define specific interest and relation between the two aspects. And the other is more related to the fact that I think that these kind of small groups, and I was in group 2, but there are a number of cities which are already working on urban forestry policies, and the kind of interaction that we can also provide by, I'm, for example, working in the Greater Milan area with a project that relates to that. So it would be great to interact and to discuss, and these kind of groups are so important for us in order to share knowledge and then acquire knowledge from other groups.
Okay, so that's another question about the interlinks between different aspects. I have seen Marco Nida, but I take 2 more colleagues and then pass to you, Marco, if okay. The next who was asking for a floor was Aroa Gregori from Lifeterra. Please, Aroa.
Thank you very much. I would like to mention something about education that was mentioned in my working group, but it did not have the chance before. Education is one of the pillars of the Lifeterra project, and we actually are working to provide these digital contents for teachers to share with students and to be able to learn about climate change and trees and the role of trees in cities and so on and so forth. The outcome of this course also, we want to organize tree planting events in cities or close by with teachers, but a challenge we found was actually land access. So I think it's important, as the mayor of Prague mentioned, to coordinate with the public sector and with this all available public lands we have to spread the word and to be able to educate in the field and at the same time plant trees there. And the final thing also involved in education, we also have a program because it was mentioned it's important local awareness about climate change, about trees, but we believe not only awareness is important, but actually to empower citizens to take real climate action. So we have this program of Terra Leaders, as we call them, just youth or volunteer people interested to collaborate and hands-on climate action and planting trees in cities or also outside. And we have this training program. We believe it's important to teach or transmit the knowledge of how to plant the right tree and the right way also, because we know this is relevant for tree survival. And we know with citizens sometimes it's tricky, and we would like to give chance for the trees to survive. So we believe it's important to train and empower them and guide them throughout the whole process, so that they can feel they can take action, not just complain or protest or ask for action, but also involve and take it themselves. Thank you.
Yeah, clear. And the last in this round of contributions would be Frank Noyens. Please, Frank, floor is yours. You should unmute yourself. We don't
hear.
It was a brief question, but it was not discussed in our working group. But I think it's very interesting because, for example, in the Netherlands, we noticed that there's starting pressure on the tree nurseries to deliver the trees we want to plant. And I was asking myself, is that also a problem, or not a problem, but a growing problem maybe in other EU countries? Harriet talked about the regeneration of trees, so the seedlings, of course. But when you plant trees in the cities, you have to grow the trees in nurseries first. So is it maybe just a Dutch thing, or is it also in more European countries a starting problem to deliver, of course, the 3 billion trees you want to plant?
Many thanks. This is more question to the plenary than to the Commission or DG, but I have seen after the first contribution at least that the representative of DG Environment, Marco Nida, raised his hand. So if it is still relevant, I can pass the floor to you now, Marco, please.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much, Ladislav, and great to see you here after some time. Well, I just wanted to give a quick reply. Well, first of all, I wanted to thank everybody because I haven't been particularly active in my group, but I've been like a sponge in listening to, because this is really an enrichment for the work we are doing to prepare for this roadmap to the 3 billion tree pledge. So it's actually an enormous advancement for us. With some of the people, I will actually be in direct contact after this meeting. On the question by Harriet on the natural regeneration, yes, we are aware and we are absolutely in favor of using nature as a planter. The question is, it is, and somebody said it also during our group, it is actually very difficult to monitor that. I mean, you can do it, of course, but it's depending on where you plant, you have different possibilities of counting on monitoring. If you do it in cities, it's very easy. If you do it in open space and you let it do by nature, is a different story. Of course, you can use satellite. There are lots of possibilities, but the natural regeneration is for sure something that we want to use to achieve the target. I mean, mimicking nature will be also the cheapest solution, and that would also. I mean, I think kind of overlaps also to the second point you made. We totally agree with that. I mean, no mistakes of the past, no planting where there is a high biodiversity ecosystems that shouldn't be touched. That goes by itself. And then, I mean, there were a few comments, so I don't need to comment on the comments, but just a couple of small things. A very good suggestion about the education. We are actually thinking of that in the context of the forest strategy, and for the tree planting, it would be very important to have education about this, so that the teachers can. There's no better fresh energy than kids and pupils for planting trees as well. And the second thing that was mentioned, it's the nurseries. This is actually an issue because we are not even sure that we have sufficient seedlings and saplings today, because of course the seedlings and sapling business goes depending on the commercial demand, and sometimes it's not just for the right tree, because we need to plant the right tree in the right place. And as Angelo Salsi said, not plant the invasive species and so on. But it's not necessarily what you find in nurseries, because the nurseries, they respond to commercial logic. So we have to involve them. Actually, we want to have everybody on board, including the level of the nurseries, and see how they can further mirror this pledge in their activities.
Thank you.
Many thanks, and I invite you. We still have some time for additional contributions, so feel free to raise your hand. I would just like add probably my short comment. There is an element of European policies related to, let's say, our issue, and this is the expectation to do no harm with other activities, which says a lot also in relation to what we plan here. And when speaking about the natural regeneration, I fully agree with what was said, but I would add one thing. The goal to plant 3 billion trees is a goal to show that we want to do more compared to what would happen anyway. So yes, natural regeneration is part of the business, but it's part of business in case if it is on top of what would regenerate naturally anyway. Otherwise, we will just monitor what is happening, and it's difficult to declare that as a result of our initiative. So I mean, this initiative is set up, in my understanding, in order to get more than what would be the normal case if we didn't have this initiative. But I think this is the overall understanding, I'm quite sure. I see again, probably Harriet wants shortly to react on what she heard, and then I see the next one would be Patrick Worms and Andreas Beckmann. So Harriet, please, shortly.
Thanks. Yeah, very quickly. No, just to say that I don't think it's the case, especially given the state of, ecosystems in Europe, that, we can't add additional natural regeneration because you can fence off areas so that you don't get the grazing animals that eat the saplings, for example. So you definitely can take measures that increase natural regeneration. And then just quickly on the monitoring, I do obviously understand that, but I definitely think it's worth putting the right effort to get the monitoring right on this, because it doesn't make sense to have a policy that plants, the same tree in a row that's not providing the best ecological value just because it's easier to monitor.
Mm-hmm. Many thanks. Patrick Worms.
Thank you. Yes, indeed. I want to emphasize what Harriet said. In Europe, we can add a lot of trees to agricultural landscapes, and these trees don't necessarily need to be planted. They can also be regenerated. The decision about what to do where goes into a scientific field called options by context. And there is no one-size-fits-all that we can dictate here. What we can do, however, is always to remember that the science shows that we can add many billions of trees to agricultural landscapes in Europe without damaging the ability of those landscapes to produce the food and the fiber that we need, or without damaging the ability of the farmers who manage these landscapes to make a good livelihood. And that should be our focus. The second order question about whether the tree is planted or whether it's regenerated and whether it's exotic or whether it's native, whether it comes because there is a great source of saplings or seedlings, or whether they have a local problem in generating enough saplings or seedlings, are second order problems. But the first order problem is just to figure out how we can help farmers across our continent recognize that trees are their ally in their farming business, their friend in their farming business, and a potential resource not only for resilience but also for additional income. Let's not lose sight of that. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Patrick. And I've seen Andreas Beckmann. Floor is yours, Andreas.
Yeah. Actually, I had a question. I won't ask that question just because of time now, because I don't think there will be time for an answer. But just maybe just use the opportunity to emphasize something that came up with the financing, but it's relevant for everything, I think. Just the importance of emphasizing the interconnectedness of all of this, interrelationships, and how trees are relevant for many of the other things that we are trying to achieve. I think for people in this area, it kind of goes without saying, but it is news for a lot of people. So the fact that we can use this for planting trees, for generating jobs, for carbon sequestration, for economic benefits, et cetera, but also a lot of the discussions that we had on the financing kept on coming up with touching on aspects that are, for example, within the EU biodiversity strategy, green infrastructure, being one of those, biomass, and so on. So just to keep in mind that those interconnections, so this more holistic approach, that not only makes sense in and of itself, but also helps us with the financing, to generate those financing, to leverage other sources of support, but also with the communications. It's not just about trees, it's about much, much more. Thanks.
Many thanks. Still 3 minutes for any other raised hands. Yes, I see Sophie Barret, please. You have to unmute yourself. Yeah.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I wanted to say that actually we were talking about cost and economical aspects of tree planting, but also there is a cost of non-planting. So it's very important, and we did not talk about it in our discussions in working group 2 about urban trees, but it's also the same thing for forests and for rural areas. The cost of protection of trees is a strong topic that we should address too, not only planting but also protecting trees. And in France, I speak only about what I know. In France, we designed a very simple declaration of tree rights. I'm happy to share with everybody. It's in one page, and we present it to politicians, to the public, and everybody can share and discuss around it. And it just raises awareness that trees are not urban furniture. So it's just a start, just a mindset to start with. And then, of course, we can do planting and all that. But the protective thing is very important. And in France, we are actually bringing a new improvement of French law, and it's in discussion now. And with my NGO Arbre, it means trees in French, we are improving this law and working on it. So it's really happening, and I think we can be positive about it, because if we work on planting trees and then protective old trees are very good for a carbon tank, we can improve things. Thank you.
Yes, many thanks, Sophie, for that. And I have to say that this is very often an issue of discussions in several countries where I enter in these discussions, that on the one side, there is a good understanding of the importance of planting trees in order to achieve the goals we have. But it was always connected with a but, saying that first and foremost, we should not lock out the trees which are already there. So it should not be the excuse, the planting new trees should be not the excuse for somewhere else logging the trees. We have to protect what we have, and we have to add to it. And I think that if I read the conclusions, particularly from the first group, but also from others, we have been agreeing on the fact that we should concentrate on the municipalities, on the agricultural landscape, on the places where trees have been in the past and they are missing now, and we need to bring them back, instead of just counting the trees which we replant in the logged forests. I mean, obviously, we need to take care about the forest regeneration, but we are speaking here about trees which will be additional to the normal business within the, let's say, forested areas in the European Union. I am asking and giving the very last chance if someone wants to raise the hand in today's discussion, but it's not the last opportunity to contribute, obviously, over the process later on. Yeah, I see Peter Derksen.
Yes, in the Netherlands we have the National Tree Festival, and we celebrate it on the 10th of November this year. Maybe it's an idea if somebody wants to join it. We are thinking about doing it digital, the planting with a lot of children and the municipality. Maybe we can arrange something that you can follow it, how we do it in the Netherlands. Mm-hmm. And if you want to come, it's also possible, but we don't have money to invite you to pay the travel. But you're welcome to join us to see how children, how enthusiastic, how the mayor, how our royal house is involved, and how we do the education, the planting of trees. So maybe it's an idea to exchange some things.
Perfect. It comes as a side result of today's discussion, yeah. And I will add it to the points probably to all who organized the conference today. probably to have a place, an address somewhere where
November 10th.
all of our activities which are related at our level, at national level, to the common goal of planting trees and celebrating them, just to inform others who want to join, come, get some experience, etc. It may be a good idea, be it organized by the Commission or by someone else, but probably a good idea to consider. Okay, so I am now in time when I have to summarize. I think it was summarized very well, but I will still ask, because I am quite sure that my colleagues on behind the scene have been working hard to produce a desired one slide, which I was asking for. So let's have a look. Oh my God, I wanted it will be 5 bullet points, and as you see, it is it is really very dense and full of ideas, which is very good for the results of the and report from the conference for the Commission. I'm quite sure. I am not going to read it all in details, but let's say the main highlights. First and foremost, there is an agreement of all participants that when speaking about the target, we do have opportunity and space in Europe to do so. So we could really manage, to achieve it. It's not, let's say, a kind of science fiction goal. And we should and can concentrate on the most degraded areas in the places where the trees are actually missing and where they need to be. We can include different type of approaches. One of them is the agroforestry, but it is also other options which could be implemented. And the problem which we have to address in all approaches is we need to create a social acceptance, and particularly acceptance within those who are managing the land in a given place. So it is about also working with all partners like farmers or foresters, etc. Obviously also broader public. We discussed also the issue of exotic species and the limitations of that, and also, let's say, the broader aspects of the approaches like agroforestry or silvopastoral systems. The second work group was highlighting, if I am not mistaken, yes, I see it in the notes, several issues. The big challenge is to create, to raise, create, and keep, I would say, awareness about tree planting. And this is a broader issue. It is not only to get people, let's say, fun for planting the trees, but also the understanding, and that came also from other working groups, that it is not only to plant, but it is also to care about, and it is about to have a sustainable system to support. So it's very important to have the projects which will educate people, which will allow people to get relevant information and explain that this is not one-off activity, but it is something what will have to survive for longer period. The second issue, which was mentioned by, not yet moving, please, which was issued by work group second, is when we speak about the municipalities, big cities, there are ways how to do it, there are experiences how to do it, but there is a general question mark about finding the space in conflict with other interests, particularly with infrastructures, and in planning this needs to be, put on the higher level of priority in order, to actually create a space for the goodwill of people to have and plant trees also in the municipalities with all the desired effects. And it is also the issue which should not stay within the present representations, but it should be also, let's say, planned and prepared in a way which will involve the future generation into a whole process. The third working group we can move, have been discussing the role of corporate sector, of private sector in that. And we first have seen several examples that the big companies, if they take it as a part of their social and environmental responsibility, can make a big change. It's not a small contribution, it is really a kind of groundbreaking and moving forward activities which are possible if this is well, let's say, accepted. And the good news is that companies are more and more thinking about the strategies which involve tree planting and similar activities. They obviously, nevertheless, are interested that these projects are also sustainable and well structured in order not to have it as a kind of not really contributing elements. Obviously, this is also linked to the broader framework in which they operate, which means it may also require new impulses, the involvement of the broader public, but also enabling framework in terms of, let's say, legislation, or maybe also the combining of the financial tools and initiatives. And finally, fourth work group, the one which is always somehow present in many discussions, and this is about how to raise the funds and how to get financing for all these activities. First good news is that what is already available is actually a broad range of pretty well-financed funding sources. On top of it, it is financial sources at different levels. So it is European, it's national, it's regional level, where there is an option to just like go and have some financing for these projects. Including the ad hoc new financial frameworks like the pandemic funds, which are going to be implemented. Good thing is also, which is not mentioned in the notes, but I have to say that the important element is that there is a certain ring fencing of the amounts of the money which should be invested into biodiversity or into climatic issues within at least European funds, which creates, let's say, a certain reserve in terms of not to be the finances not to be lost for other also important priorities. The issue is obviously, as I mentioned already, from the outcomes of the work group 3, that in many aspects we need to combine the financial resources but also efforts, and then the issue is not only using, let's say, subventions and money coming from the public sources, but also to incentivize the private sector to invest in it. And basically what is clear, despite the fact that at the moment we may have relatively sufficient sources of financing for the first phase of the whole process, what we need to create is the leverage effect, which will allow long-term and sustainable financing, not only for the planting, but also for the care and issues related to that. And I would repeat here that this is also issue of awareness, education, and possibilities for all which want to be involved to be well informed. And finally, this group, as also other groups and also the plenary discussion did, raised the importance of being very careful about the potential harmful by-effects in if the issue is not well understood and implemented. For example, that it may be the question that we, by good interest in let's say increasing the number of trees, etc., we could also, or we need also to look on the other side of the same coin, which is where we are losing the trees and eventually where we have set up the subvention programs which are controversial to it. Particularly mentioned issue is, for example, the use of biomass, which may have really undesired and large-scale effects if it is not well structured and clearly managed and followed. So I hope I was able to summarize the most important elements from the work group's discussion. I will add also from plenary, from my minutes here, a few just, a kind of flash words, which is don't forget about the natural regeneration and its importance. Care about no harm effect in all other, but also in this particular activity. Don't forget for the other enabling elements, not only a legal framework, not only willingness, not only education, not only money, but also issues like just a technical, logistical support and needed issues like, let's say, sufficient material, be it from nurseries or otherwise. So all the parts which are needed for that. And again and again and again, training, guidance, education. That should be part of the whole process, and it should be not only part at the beginning, but throughout all the time. I will finalize with what I actually always like, and this is we are discussing one important and highly, with a high potential issue, which is planting the trees, which can address many of our priorities, but all this should be one part of very broad and holistic framework, which is addressing, the broader problem. So interconnections to other activities, interconnections to other priorities and holistic approach is the key, without which we could not be successful at the end with our aims, which were set up in the aim to plant 3. I was already going to double 3 billion trees in the European Union. So now the option for any of you, if you think I really missed something really important which was raised and I didn't reflect to it, you can at least you can send it by chat. I don't see immediate hands raised. So I would say, as expected, for me, it was exciting discussion. I think the outcomes are very interesting, which was already confirmed by the representatives of DG Environment, and I'm sure if they get the detailed contributions, it will be even more so. I have to say that actually what is very useful is also to have all these different points of view, taking into account that we don't only have this goal, but we have to see it as a part of the much broader framework when we speak about the climate impacts, climate change impacts, but also the biodiversity crisis, which we follow all around, and which despite really ambitious goals, we still didn't manage to stop in the European Union. So these are the issues which needs to be always taken into consideration. I will now finish this part of today's discussion by thanking you for contributions and wishing good luck to all of you with many of your projects, participations, activities which you have, which are in line with what we discussed today, be it in your, let's say, nationwide context or in cities, companies, NGOs. And I really hope that this will also, let's say, set up a kind of opportunity or even it's difficult to speak about tradition in the first event, but nevertheless, I would propose really to come back together on the occasion of European Tree of the Year next year and a kind of flashback look on what from today's discussion actually happened and what is not happening, and if we are successful in implementation of the ideas we discussed here, and also if and to what extent our contributions have been taken and used at higher political level. And now I am, of course, targeting the European Commission and responsible people there. So let's hope we can see each other, and in ideal case in person. I mean, because I sincerely hope that we will not need to discuss next year again about additional COVID response funds and things like that. And let me to go to the last but not least part, because I am coming now to something what was a vehicle for our discussion. And this is the award of European Tree of the Year. I just repeat that Commissioner Sinkevičius at the beginning reminded in his keynote the importance of caring also for old trees, green areas which exist, and the natural forests. And we all know that, if we destroy them, doesn't matter how many new we plant, we will have to wait decades or centuries to get new trees in the same shape, importance, and ecological service delivery as we can see from the old-grown or older, let's say, tree plantations, forests, and natural places. So this is obviously also a kind of behind-the-scene issue which led us many years ago to start with a competition of European Tree of the Year. And it's in a way a kind of historical coincidence that similarly as, let's say, initiatives about the tree planting, a part of other several certainly places in the Europe, also this competition started first as a national one in Czech Republic. And since actually now already 11 years, we have been able, thanks to support of many important players, which I will still mention, to organize European Tree of the Year contest where more and more member states or nations better take part, and where more and more people throughout Europe vote for the trees. So now I invite you to take a closer look at the fantastic trees that have participated in the this year contest, which are actually already national winners, and which now will be estimated and at the end rewarded those of that which got the biggest support as European Trees of the Year. And before that, I would like really highlight that before the unveiling the results, we will hear the contributions of those who have been all the time tirelessly supporting the competition. I have to tell you, because I really came with the first year that competition, and we did it in a very small scale and without the support of particularly European landowners, and also in each year with dedicated members of European Parliament and other important personalities, including obviously also the DG Environment, we would not be reaching today's point and the level of success which we can observe. So you will hear first contributions of our distinguished and valued partners, and then you can enjoy the ceremony, which is of course at a distance because of the COVID, and to see what or which trees this year collected the biggest support in the Europe. So enjoy the award ceremony. I thank you all for your contributions. I will not be coming back to speak after the ceremony. So I wish you, thank you once more, and I wish you a nice rest of the day. And now let's go to the oral contributions and the award ceremony. Goodbye.
It's my great pleasure and honor to be one of the supporters of European Tree of the Year. This competition reminds us that the trees don't only represent something very important for our climate. Sometimes it represents a source of energy and warmth at homes, but also behind each tree there could be fantastic story, some history, something special. That's why I'm so grateful that you all participate in this competition. This is one of the few where everyone is a winner. Thank you.
Hello and greetings from Brussels. My name is Michal Vezik and I have the privilege to be the ambassador of the European Tree of the Year contest. Trees are so important for our society. They are beautiful sentient beings. They form our environment, but we use them also as living memorials of significant historical events. And this is the essence of our contest. We are looking for a tree with a story. This year is really extraordinary. We have 14 splendid candidates. The public chose and selected their winner, and I'm really looking forward to the result. Nevertheless, I firmly believe that all of the 14 contestants deserved the reward. So I wish to you all a beautiful award ceremony. I'm really looking forward for the winner, and long live the trees.
Dear friends of trees, let me address you in the name of the organizer of the European Tree of the Year, the Environmental Partnership Association. I would like to thank, first of all nominators of the trees, all communities who nominated their trees across the Europe, and congratulate to the national winners. I would like to thank also national organizers who did a lot of work to promote their trees and to put them on the European contest. And second remark is following the future. We would like to connect the caring for all trees and the contest for Tree of the Year with the future planting of the trees and with the goals of the European Commission to plant 3 billion trees in Europe over the next 10 years, and we would like to focus to this direction. So thank everybody very much, and congratulations to the winners.
Dear friends of the trees, on behalf of the European Landowners Organization, the long-term partner of the European Tree of the Year contest, I would like to send my warmest regards to all the trees lovers and my thanks to those participating and supporting our contest. We are here to celebrate the diversity of our trees, honoring the individual species and the varying culture and symbols they do represent. Planting trees requires a special amount of foresight into the future, as someone who plants trees must look decades in advance for their work to be truly appreciated. Probably the one who plants the trees will never see the trees at maturity. We, landowners, we are always pleased to see a wide public appreciation for our works and the work of our ancestors that require such patience and passion. It is very important that people care about nature, understand its complexity and protect it for the future generation, while using its gift wisely. I would like to express my gratitude to all the indispensable peoples working at the local level, those who have organized the national contest, the one who have nominated their trees, and the one who are running the campaigns to attract the attention of the public. I hope you have enjoyed our contest and you will enjoy the award ceremony. Therefore, all my congratulations to all of them. Thanks a lot.
Welcome to the award ceremony of the contest European Tree of the Year 2021. Very soon, you will find out which of the 14 finalists won the favor of our voters and climbed on the top of the winner's podium. However, note that the winner is actually every tree. It has a loving community around which breathes for the tree, and the tree helps them to breathe. Listen to the story of the tree. Isn't it yours? Once upon a time, there was a man who planted a tree. The man kept meeting other people, and they took care of the tree together. The tree had its people, and the people had their tree. The tree is still standing. It grows and grows stronger. Only people change. And yet something is still the same, the tree and the care of the people who love it. In return, it gives them its fruits. The shade retains moisture, is a reminder of the stories that took place under his crown. Wondering where the tree stands? Well, maybe in your garden, maybe in the park you like to go to, on the coast or in the woods. The important thing is that this is your tree. With the others, it has something in common. The roots, which are firmly rooted in the soil and retain water for us, branches and leaves which give shade nearby, a trunk that is home to countless beetles, a refuge for birds and small animals, and also us, the people who take care of the tree, who love it. Thanks to this symbiosis, we can breathe better, us and the tree. Do you already know where to find it? After all, where you feel good, home. Each of us is at home in a different part of Europe, and yet we have something in common, our trees. Like us, they are different, but in some ways the same. Those we nominate today have had meetings with our ancestors. Those we plant will meet our descendants. Can we plant 3 billion trees in Europe together? Can we improve the climate and the world together? It's up to all of us. Every tree has its meaning. Somebody has planted a tree for our future, and we can do the same, planting trees for the future. 14 trees, each of them of a different age, high, burly, each stands in a different corner of Europe. But they all have a strong story. Come, listen to them. During the First World War, the city of Ypres was totally destroyed, but the root stump of this tree remained alive there. From the base of the trunk, 4 new side trunks grew up spontaneously. They also survived the Second World War, when Ypres was cold and almost all trees were cut down for firewood. The 4-trunked chestnut became a unique survivor from pre-war Ypres. This living monument, with a trunk base of no less than 9.1 meters in circumference, now symbolizes the force of survival, located next to the world-famous Menin Gate. The old mulberry has proudly stood for centuries at the central town square, now a public garden. It brings together young and old people to pass time together and enjoy the tree and a fountain. Back in time, near the veteran tree was the town pub. The centuries have passed the story of Stefan Karadja, renowned national revolutionary. He outwitted the head of the local administrative unit by succeeding in hiding this much-visited and noticeable pub during a chase by the Ottoman army unit. The apple tree in the garden of the Lidman pub in Machowska Lohota quietly witnesses the stories of the people, provides shade in the summer and fruit in the autumn to locals and visitors who came for the beauty of the Table Mountains and nature on the Czech-Polish border. she has witnessed the birth of many loves, first meetings, weddings, festivities, as well as sad events. Its fruits are in the Czech countryside, traditionally harvested for strudel, juice, or apple cider. This apple tree is also a truly European tree, as evidenced by the fact that the variety Renata Blenheim was bred at the birthplace of Winston Churchill. Fondly nicknamed the Poupli for 2 centuries, this black poplar is huge for France, girth 9.6 meters and 38 meters high. Last of the old poplars, soul of the village, her gold leaves adorn its coat of arms. She is said to be the incarnation of a nymph, daughter of the sun, who mourned for her dead brother by the river. The Poupli was a sentinel during World War I, soldiers watching the enemy from her heights. Located on a buildable private site and weakened by a fire, villagers wished to protect her for many more years. Years fly by, she tells us. The town square was always alive, with a market, dances, centuries-old traditions, as carnival prince burning or ritual May thefts when young men show their courage and love to girls by stealing flowers, fences, cars, or boats from locals who find them under the town square tree. Today she enjoys a movie or play, sways at summer concerts, sings for Christmas when she dresses up to spend time with locals and guests. Above all, she loves children's play and laughter. She'll treat them to magical chocolate berries in the future too. Thus says the eldest resident of Medellin, our town square nettle tree. The Coringa plane tree is located in a very unusual position. Overlooking the Tyrrhenian Sea, it juts out over a small stream. From the height of its majesty, this guardian seems to lovingly watch over the forest. It is thought to be planted by Basilian monks who arrived in Calabria more than 1,000 years ago, and that built the hermitage of Saint Elia. But its trunk may be even older. Its trunk is completely hollow and has an opening more than 3 meters wide. Whoever enters it has the feeling of being inside an incredible woody cave. Thanks to the huge size of its circumference, it is now the largest plane tree in Italy. The tree was planted in 1750 by Franciscan monks from Subotica on a hill in the north side of the church that was being built in the village at the time. It is a miracle that this Mediterranean species is still alive there. Its spring blooming is admired by everyone and has become a symbol of the settlement. Countless seedings from its life in the gardens of the people of Melikut, thus connecting the past with the present and the settlement with its former inhabitants around the world. As a symbol for gathering and meeting, the mother tree on the market square of Etten-Leur has been part of society for 345 years. Wear, tear, and lots of attention through the ages gave it its striking appearance. Rooted in the heart of people, this linden tree is a silent witness to 1,001 stories, emotions, and events. Arguments were settled, and young love blossomed under its long branches. It even inspired the later world-famous painter, Vincent van Gogh. Everyone of any age loves this green pearl. According to an ancient Polish custom, a linden would be planted when a daughter was born. This is how our linden was planted 170 years ago. Or maybe, was it on a bird's merit? The tree is standing at the verge of the village close to the fields. Nothing was standing in her way, thus she grew her branches wide, 25 meters wide. She became a benefactress, giving shadow to those who worked in the field, a place for trekkers and nectar for bees. The shrine of Saint John of Nepomuk, standing close by, has given an air of magic to the place. Its unusual beauty surprises and inspires admiration for nature's power. There is no other linden tree like this. Planted in 1838, it's the largest in the Iberian Peninsula. Majestic in size, its trunk has a perimeter of 7 meters, and its treetop has a diameter of 37 meters. It's Portalegre's ex libris. It houses in its long and sturdy branches years and years of collective memories and endless secrets. It has been a place of meetings, the birthplace of clubs, associations, and brass bands. This plain continues with great resilience to amaze admirers, listening to lonely confessions and inspiring artists. The ancient East is full of secrets and legends. According to a legend, the great commander of the East, Nadir Shah, looked after the sprouts of the sycamore tree that adorned the territory of the Juma Mosque in ancient Derbent. Admiring the mighty giant, the writer Alexander Bestuzhev-Marlinsky composed his works. Today, the majestic patriarch adorns the central part of the house of worship, being a symbol of power, one of the places of attraction for the people of Dagestan and guests of the Republic. They create legends about it, poetize it, and depict it in paintings. The Old Oak is located next to the former grounds of Count Andrase's famous iron plant in Drnava. It was here in the 1940s that the structural parts of the famous chain bridge Lánchíd in Budapest were cast, for which the village earned the nickname Kispest, or Little Pest. Today, the tree is one of the stops on the nature trail of the old trade route and has been an integral symbol of the village for several generations. There is mention of the stout oak in the municipal chronicle as early as 1670. Legend tells of the times when witches populated the Gura mountains, where they danced and celebrated around the holm oak. 1,000 years later, it's this union with the people that continues to be the cause for why this holm oak still stands in the small town of Alto Aragon, with only 13 inhabitants. The neighbors chose it and continue to choose it for their celebrations. It is surprising because of its proximity to the houses whilst being such an old tree, and yet it is so alive. The secret will surely be the care and company of Lecinus neighbors and those witches. The Borders Forest Trust based its slogan, "Where one tree survives, a million trees will grow," on a lone rowan clinging to a stream bank in the Carafran Valley. Today, that survivor tree is lonely no more. It is surrounded by a little forest of its children, and in addition to its own children, the rowan tree now has over 500,000 other native Scottish trees for company. The rowan tree no longer stands alone and is a symbol of the 20-year journey to revive the wild heart of southern Scotland. You have met this year's finalists, 14 trees from all over Europe. The fact that more than 300,000 people voted for them in this contest proves their great importance to us. And now comes the moment when you will find out which of the tree stories fascinated you the most. Third place in the European Tree of the Year 2021 competition goes to Ancient Sycamore Tree, Russia, 66,026 votes. Second place in the European Tree of the Year 2021 competition goes to the 1,000-year-old plane tree of Coringa, Italy, 78,210 votes. The winner of the European Tree of 2021 contest is the Millennial Carrasca of Lechina, Spain, 104,264 votes. Congratulations on winning the European Tree of 2021 contest. We also thank all the voters and those who supported the future of the trees with their donations. If you want to give your favorite tree the opportunity to become a European Tree of the Year winner for 2022, enter it into your national competition. We also thank all the national coordinators, without whom the European Tree of the Year contest would not exist. Thank you for your attention, and we look forward to seeing you at the next 12th year of our European contest.
Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks a lot to all the organizers.
Nice to meet you all.
Take care.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you very, very, very much.
Bye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, everybody. Thank you very much.